In the spring of 1956, a young woman from Philadelphia sat in a panelled salon at Cartier on the Rue de la Paix. The stone on her finger weighed over 10 carats. Outside, Paris was still cold. Inside, a deal had already been struck. An American film star would pay $2 million into a cash-poor Mediterranean principality whose prosperity depended on a casino. The jewels were there to make the bargain look like a fairy tale. But here is what the fairy tale never told you. The woman who became the most photographed princess in the world, whose pearls and diamonds appeared at every gala, every state visit, every christening for nearly 3 decades, died with approximately $10,000 registered in her own name. And the jewels? They were never really hers to begin with. The ring that changed everything. The story begins not with a diamond, but with a ruby. When Prince Rainier III proposed to Grace Kelly in Philadelphia in late December 1955, his first offer was an eternity band of interwoven rubies and diamonds, heirloom stones from his family, set into a slim Cartier ring that echoed Monaco's red and white flag. It was a gesture of continuity and patriotism. A prince whose state relied on roulette tables offering a token of heritage, not ostentation. On Grace's finger beside the large solitaires of her Hollywood peers, it looked modest. Within weeks, a second ring had been ordered. An emerald-cut diamond of approximately 10.47 carats, flanked by baguette diamonds mounted in platinum. The ruby band did not disappear. She wore both rings throughout her life, but the larger stone became the icon, a portable emblem of a tiny principality's ambitions. What makes this detail so telling is where Grace wore the new ring first, not at a state dinner, not at a palace reception. She wore it on screen as Tracy Lord in High Society, her final Hollywood film, visibly upgrading her character's fictional engagement at the very moment her own life was pivoting from studio system to sovereign house. Fiction and reality merged so completely that even she may not have been able to separate them. The wedding gifts that followed built on that image with deliberate precision. Monaco's National Council debated an elaborate ruby and diamond demi-parure before deciding the cost was politically indefensible. They settled instead on a diamond festoon necklace from Cartier and commissioned a lattice-patterned diamond bracelet from Van Cleef and Arpels. Grace debuted the necklace at the Opera Gala in Monte Carlo on the eve of the religious wedding in April 1956, wearing it with a Cartier ruby and diamond tiara necklace given by the Société des Bains de Mer, the state-controlled casino company that had effectively saved the Grimaldis from bankruptcy a century earlier. A piece of casino corporate identity transformed into bridal regalia. Rainier's personal gift was the Van Cleef and Arpels pearl and diamond suite, a 3-strand pearl necklace and bracelet matching earrings and ring created between 1953 and 1956 and presented as her corbeille de mariage, her marriage basket. Van Cleef and Arpels was named patented supplier of the Principality of Monaco in 1956. The pearls were photographed again and again on the Spanish honeymoon in early official portraits, at the presentations and christenings of her 3 children. And behind all of it, a number that the fairy tale never mentioned. Grace's family paid a dowry of approximately $2 million, roughly $20 million in today's money, into the House of Grimaldi. That sum, assembled from her film earnings and anticipated inheritance, effectively wiped out her personal savings at the very moment she agreed to give up her income-producing career. She paid to enter. She surrendered her earning power on the same day she emptied her accounts. By the early 1960s, every piece was doing double duty, adorning a princess and advertising a business model. But what happens when the business model needs more than beauty can provide? The Golden Cage. Once in Monaco, Grace could no longer earn fees from studios or advertising. Her likeness belonged to the palace and to MGM's back catalogue. The woman who had made millions for studios and who would go on to make millions for Monaco ended up with little legal control over the wealth her image generated. The principality's finances made this arrangement feel even more precarious. Casino revenues accounted for around 95% of state income, allowing the Grimaldis to abolish direct taxation, but leaving them dangerously dependent on roulette tables and baccarat. In the early 1960s, President Charles de Gaulle's government, angered by Monaco's status as a tax haven for French citizens, briefly blockaded the borders, a sovereignty crisis that made the fragility of the whole arrangement impossible to ignore. A tiny state, a marriage negotiated under pressure to produce an heir and shore up independence, and a woman who had paid to enter. In this context, Grace's relationship with her jewels evolved into something more uniform than personal. She wore them, but not with the aggressive ostentation of some other royal houses. Observers noted that she often favored relatively discreet pieces, pearls, fine but restrained diamond earrings, rather than the towering tiaras of Scandinavian or British courts. Her jewel wearing settled into a pattern: the Cartier diamond necklace and earrings for formal state visits, sometimes topped with the Bains de Mer tiara. Pearls and a handful of significant brooches for national celebrations and charity galas. The Grain de Café gold from Cartier for daywear. Biographer Thilo Widra described her married life bluntly as a golden cage, a role torn between illusion and reality rather than an equal partnership. She struggled with language and culture, English-speaking in a French-speaking court. She struggled with the loss of work. In interviews, she acknowledged that any return to acting was up to the prince, a decision that never came in her favour. There is a detail that French royal jewellery commentators have noted with some tartness, that Rainier was, in their words, a little stingy. The story of the larger Cartier engagement ring being ordered only when the ruby band looked lacking in class beside Hollywood peers is widely repeated in specialist literature. And because his formidable mother, Princess Charlotte, never lent Grace the old Grimaldi tiaras, Grace had to build her personal collection from scratch, from pieces paid for by Rainier or loaned by Parisian houses, not from deep family heirlooms. She was a princess who wore the jewels of a principality she had purchased the right to enter. And on the balcony for National Day, in the casino's Belle Époque salons, in charity ballrooms, the diamonds and pearls told the story of a serene princess whose presence helped attract the world's wealthy to Monaco, an effect modern commentators explicitly credit with helping transform the principality into the place with the world's highest density of millionaires. In private, the bargain looked different. For 20 years, the diamonds and pearls told the story of a serene princess. But on a September morning in 1982, the car left the road, and the fairy tale left with it. The crash and the reckoning. On the morning of September 13th, 1982, Princess Grace drove back toward Monaco with her younger daughter, Stephanie, after a weekend at Roc-à-Gel, the family's mountain retreat. Somewhere on the Serpentine Road above La Tourbie, the car left the carriageway. Grace died the following day. Stephanie survived. The shock was global. At home, it was also administrative. Grace Kelly had approximately $10,000 in personal assets registered in her United States will, plus a derelict family cottage in County Mayo, Ireland. The woman photographed in Cartier and Van Cleef and Arpels at every major event for nearly 3 decades had left almost nothing in her own name. No publicly available probate record spells out how her jewellery was divided. What specialist commentary and contemporary reports suggest is a pattern consistent with how small monarchies manage such collections. The most important pieces, the Cartier festoon necklace, the Bain de Mer ruby suite, the Van Cleef pearl parure, the major diamond necklaces and bracelets, passed into what is now openly described as the Palais Princier collection, a semi-institutional pool from which the reigning prince can lend items to exhibitions or to the senior princess. The court jeweller, a careful modern chronicler, notes that Princess Grace's jewels now largely belong to the Palais Princier collection, are often displayed in exhibitions around the world, and are also worn occasionally by her daughters and their family members. Some items appear to have been treated as personal property. Princess Charlotte, Rainier's mother, is said in specialist commentary to have bypassed Grace entirely and left certain older Monaco tiaras directly to Caroline, ensuring that the American daughter-in-law never wore them in life and that they passed to the next generation without ever touching her hands. As for the division between the children, Caroline appears to have received the jewel tradition. Stephanie received more of the domestic inheritance. Albert held the institutional control. 7 years passed before the Van Cleef Pearl Suite appeared in public again. Then, at the National Day Gala in 1989, Princess Caroline wore it for the first time since her mother's death. The passing of the torch, quiet, deliberate, 7 years in the making. Grace Kelly's jewels now belonged to the palace, not to her daughters, but one daughter would carry them forward, and the other would refuse. Caroline's burden. Princess Caroline had grown up under the glare of those jewels. As a child, she watched her mother fasten the Van Cleef pearls at the christenings. When she married financier Philippe Junot in 1978, she walked down the aisle without a tiara, a modern Dior lace gown that signaled independence as much as romance. The Junot marriage ended in 1980. In December 1983, she married Stefano Casiraghi, Italian businessman, son of a self-made industrialist, chairman of a French construction subsidiary of Fiat, founder of Engaco, holder of the Christian Dior boutique in Monte Carlo. By the late 1980s, Caroline's financial base looked more diversified than her father's had been at the time of his marriage. Palace allowance, Monaco real estate, and an Italian entrepreneurial dynasty. In 1990, that edifice cracked. Casiraghi was killed during the World Offshore Powerboat Championships off Saint-Jean-Cap-Ferrat when his catamaran flipped at high speed. Caroline was widowed with 3 young children. On her 42nd birthday, in January 1999, she married Prince Ernst August of Hanover, head of a deposed German royal house with its own tangle of estates and financial complications. They have since separated, no formal divorce announced, and Ernst August's legal disputes with his son over castles and assets have underlined that his fortune is less liquid and secure than the imagery of Hanoverian jewels might suggest. In this context, the Grace Kelly jewels became both resource and responsibility. Publicly, Caroline has worn them with care. She was the first to bring out the Van Cleef Pearl Suite after Grace's death, wearing the full set at the National Day Gala in 1989 and again, more than 30 years later, at the 2019 Bal de la Rose. She has repeatedly worn the Cartier festoon necklace, the Bain de Mer ruby brooches, the Cartier Grain de Café gold, and the diamond anniversary earrings Rainier gave Grace in 1957. Specialist observers have noticed that the rotation is relatively tight. The court jeweller's surveys of her gala appearances over the last 2 decades show the same handful of major pieces recurring: the Cartier necklace, the pearls, the Bain de Mer ruby, the Cartier pearl drop tiara. The impression is of a woman curating a small but potent treasury rather than enjoying limitless choice. And then there are the absences. Major auction houses almost never name living royal consignors. Catalogues refer vaguely to a European princely family or property of a princess. In 2014, Art Curial in Monaco sold a Hermes Kelly bag, a 40-centimeter blue jean Epsom calf Kelly with a screen-printed portrait of Grace Kelly taken in March 1954, a unique piece created for the exhibition Les Années Grace Kelly and presented to Princess Stephanie. It realized €73,720. A closely related example fetched €104,000 in 2017. Strictly speaking, leather goods. But also a Grace Kelly object, monetized on the open market, a small but telling glimpse of how even intensely symbolic items can be turned back into cash when they are no longer central to the family's self-presentation. The ruby tiara from the Bain de Mer suite, last photographed on Grace herself, has not been seen in tiara form on any member of the family since her death. Only its component brooches, pinned to Caroline's shoulders, and the matching earrings worn by Stephanie in 2005 testify to its survival. Caroline carried the jewels forward, but her younger sister chose a different path entirely. Stephanie's refusal. Princess Stephanie was in the car. She carries that with her, and it is not something this story needs to elaborate upon. What matters here is what came after, and what she chose not to carry. Born in 1965, the youngest Grimaldi child spent 4 decades quietly refusing the jewel tradition. She launched a swimwear line called Pool Position in 1985. She recorded pop albums. She married her bodyguard, Daniel Ducrouet, in 1995, wearing a short white lace mini dress with no veil and no tiara, a simple pearl necklace and loose wavy hair. She had a 3rd child with another bodyguard without publicly naming him as the father. She spent months living in a caravan on tour with a Swiss circus elephant trainer. She later married a Portuguese circus acrobat. A Los Angeles Times profile called her Her Serene Highness, who prefers swim togs to tiaras, noting that she forgoes curtsies, rarely dons diadems, and prefers to be treated as an ordinary girl. In a European royal landscape where jewels are treated as quasi-sacred, this resistance is not trivial. It is a sustained, decades-long refusal of the bargain her mother struck. And then came one exception, which made the refusal all the more legible. At the 2005 Red Cross Ball, the first such event of her brother Albert's reign, Stephanie appeared wearing one of Grace's most opulent pieces, the Van Cleef and Arpels diamond and cabochon ruby earrings Rainier had commissioned in the 1970s to accompany the Bain de Mer tiara. The drop-shaped rubies, framed in diamonds, swayed vividly as she moved, a direct echo of photographs of Grace wearing the same suite. Caroline that night wore 2 of the Bain de Mer brooches, pinning them to the shoulders of her gown. Both sisters chose their parents' rubies for a ball that marked a dynastic transition. It was a single, deliberate act of acknowledgement, and then Stephanie put them away. She has not made big jewels a regular part of her public image since. The Grimaldi diamonds are still there. She simply declines most of the time to let them do the talking for her. One sister carries the jewels, the other refuses them. But the question remains, what happens to Grace Kelly's diamonds now? Heritage as asset. When Prince Albert II married South African swimmer Charlene Whitstock in 2011, the family's relationship with jewels shifted again. Charlene chose not to wear a tiara at the religious ceremony. Instead, she anchored a platinum-seamed Armani gown with a low-set diamond ornament tucked into the back of her chignon, a set of 19th-century floral brooches loaned by Caroline, originally bought by Karl Lagerfeld at a Droot sale and gifted to Caroline as a brooch set. A jewellery editor covering the wedding noted that Charlene's overall look confirmed she was not into jewels like her late mother-in-law, Grace Kelly, preferring a more pared-back aesthetic. In the years since, Charlene has occasionally worn modern, high-impact pieces, most notably the Grace diamond, a 1.79-carat purplish-pink argyle stone set into a new necklace called La Vie en Rose and unveiled at the Princess Grace Foundation Gala in New York in 2022. The diamond, renamed in Grace's honor, was chosen as one of only 5 hero gems in Argyle's final tender. Its current setting, by designer Lawrence Boymer, is designed to be changeable, allowing the stone to migrate through a series of jewels. New money making new symbols. Meanwhile, Monaco has doubled down on collaborations with Van Cleef and Arpels that explicitly trade on Grace's jewel legacy. In 2022, Prince Albert and Charlene hosted a palace event to launch a special vintage Alhambra long necklace, pendant and bracelet in yellow gold, mother of pearl and diamonds, created in tribute to Princess Grace. The pieces, sold exclusively for 18 months in Monaco, Cannes and Place Vendôme, directed a portion of sales to the Princess Grace Foundation USA, tying commercial jewelry sales directly to the monetization of Grace's image for charity. The exhibition program has become more intimate and more sophisticated. From July to September 2025, the State Apartments will host Grace No. 1, curated from the Palace archives, with photographs, personal belongings, jewelry and accessories displayed to offer what the organizers describe as a sensitive and unprecedented invitation to rediscover the radiant and multifaceted personality of Princess Grace. The traveling Grace Kelly Years Show has already reached over 1 million visitors worldwide. The jewels earn their keep not by being pawned, but by drawing tourists, anchoring philanthropy, and renewing a myth. The numbers matter. Monaco's state posted a budget surplus of €126 million in 2023 on revenues of €2.19 billion. Its constitutional reserve fund stood at approximately €7 billion. But palace finances are not state finances. Prince Albert's own net worth is usually estimated at under €1 billion, much of it in real estate and art rather than in cash or diamonds. Tatiana Casiraghi, the Colombian-born brewing heiress married to Caroline's son Andrea, carries an estimated personal fortune of approximately €2 billion. The wealthiest person connected to the Grimaldi family is not a Grimaldi. The most photographed jewels in the world now sit at an uncomfortable intersection. They are memorials to a woman who swapped financial autonomy for a title and a role. They are marketing tools for a principality that turned glamour into an economic model. And they are line items on a family balance sheet to be insured, conserved, exhibited, perhaps one day divided again. Grace paid to enter the House of Grimaldi. She surrendered her earning power, built a collection from scratch because her mother-in-law withheld the family heirlooms, and died with almost nothing registered in her own name. Her children inherited not a private treasury, but a public responsibility, and each of them has answered that responsibility differently. Caroline wears the pearls, Stephanie declines, Albert lends the diamonds to exhibitions, and the jewels keep working, just as they always did, doing double duty, adorning a myth and advertising a brand. The fairy tale was always a business arrangement. The remarkable thing is how long and how beautifully it held together. What I find myself wondering, and I suspect you do too, is this: when the next generation finally opens those vault doors, will they wear what's inside? Or will they do what Grace herself never had the freedom to do, and simply choose? If this story moved you the way it moved me, please give this video a like. It genuinely helps more people find these stories. And if you want to keep exploring the women behind the crowns, the jewels behind the myths, and the complicated truths behind the fairy tales, subscribe to the channel. There is always another vault to unlock.